Hi, this is the voice of Heidie Calero with another fascinating economic capsule regarding Puerto Rico's economy. And a few days ago, I was just looking at more topics for these capsules, and I said, well, it might be interesting to look at tourism and especially to Airbnb. And I came across an Oxford economic study which was published in 2022 but refers to fiscal year 2021 as to the contribution of all these short-term rentals, Airbnb in Puerto Rico. This was a study commissioned by the Association of Airbnbs, and I have entitled this capsule as Questionable Impact of that study by Oxford Economics, which is a reputable firm, but unfortunately this time they were just in the left field. And I just want to make a comment regarding that because I think we ought to get more respect for the statistics in Puerto Rico and not to be just commissioned as a tailor only for what your client wants. This first graph depicts for you visitors' expenditures as published by the Puerto Rico Planning Board. And that includes not only visitors who come to hotels, but it also includes even those of Airbnbs, because it includes guest houses, it includes even cruise ships. Those visitors' expenses, and that includes not only their stay in Puerto Rico, it's also their expenses in terms of food, recreation, transportation. All that is encompassed in this graph. And as you can see there, from 2010, the order of magnitude of the visitors' expenditure in Puerto Rico was $3.2 billion, of which $1.5 billion were of those visitors that stayed in hotels, and $1.7 billion those who stayed in other places. Coming to 2021, which is the fiscal year that Oxford Economics is looking at, it was $1.38 billion in hotels and $1.41 billion in other places, for a total of $2.79 billion in visitors' expenditures. That is the contribution to GNP of tourism. As of 2022, it was $3.3 billion in total. Notice that we have not yet recovered, even despite this magnitude of Airbnb contribution. It's not credible. Let's look at this second graph, which is that comparison with what they are saying, the contribution that Airbnb makes to tourism's GNP. And they say that expenses by these visitors at the Airbnb was approximately $860 million, or so $0.9 billion in fiscal year 2021. They also say, not only Airbnb, but they estimate that tourism's share to GNP in Puerto Rico is the massive $7.4 billion. You wish, Oxford Economics, that it should be $7.4 billion as published by the Puerto Rico Planning Board, the official agency that takes care of the national accounts in Puerto Rico. It was $3.3 billion, not in 2021, but in 2022. So exaggerated by Oxford. Let's look at jobs. Well, jobs in leisure and hospitality, as I'm depicting in this graph, the bars are the number of jobs in leisure and hospitality as published by the Puerto Rico Department of Labor, and that is in thousands. And the orange line, is the percentage of those jobs as a percentage of total jobs per the establishment survey in Puerto Rico of the published by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Then in 2013, for instance, we had in leisure and hospitality, we had 77,000 jobs, which accounted for 8.2% of all jobs in all sectors in Puerto Rico. By 2021, it was still the same share, 8.2%, but it was a lower number in leisure and hospitality. It was 70,000 or 69,800 jobs. By 2022, it had recovered. It was 83,000 jobs, and that accounted for 9.2%. But the study that Airbnb is saying, as you can see in the next graph, they are saying that they represented 24,000 jobs. Those are not direct jobs. They are direct and indirect. And this is where the problem starts, because in order to do that, you need a matrix, an input-output matrix, which we economists use. It's a very complicated matrix, but it's very useful once it is really published and it is all that that data is covered, and that requires a lot of surveys and a lot of data gathering. But at any rate, that input-output table, which is published by the Puerto Rico Planning Board, is 2012. We are now in 2023, so it's 11 years old. I doubt that Oxford Economics engaged or that Airbnb paid Oxford Economics to really make a matrix of input-output that it is updated to 2021, for instance. So these are all exaggerated. They say 24,000 jobs. If that were true, it would account for almost 34% of the 69,800 jobs in the category of leisure and hospitality as published by the Department of Labor. And we have that divided into two segments. The purple column that you see there is 10,394 jobs in hotels, motels, and casinos, and 59,124 jobs were in Bureau of Labor Statistics restaurants and other places. So that is the two segments that make up 69,800. And Airbnb is saying, oh, we were responsible for 24,000 jobs, or a third of all those jobs. Unbelievable. Let's look at this next graph, tourism's contribution to GNP, and that is as a share. What are the expenses of tourism as a percentage of GNP? Not as a percentage of gross domestic product, but as percentage of gross national product, which is what stays in Puerto Rico. 2010, it accounted for 5% tourism expenditures contribution to GNP. By 2021, the year that Oxford Economics is using, is 3.8% of GNP, Puerto Rico's GNP. By 2022, is 4.3%. As you can see there, we have not yet recovered back to 2016 when it was its highest share of 5.7% of GNP. This next graph depicts Airbnb contribution to GNP, which is not believable. They say the red column that you see there, that accounts for 1.2% of Puerto Rico's GNP. Well, visitors' expenditures as per the Puerto Rico Planning Board accounted for 3.8%, and accommodation and food services accounted for 2.6%. If we are to revise these numbers based on their computation of average per visitors, and then the total that they said that they spent, like $860 million, if you do a very simple mathematic exercise, it would remind you that that is their contribution to GNP, and that would only represent 0.03%. It's nothing compared to the rest of the sectors that contribute to GNP. So it is really questionable, the impact of this study by Oxford Economics. And I think the Puerto Rico population and all of us who follow this economy deserve a little bit more respect as to the results of a study which is outlandishly incorrect. If you like our economic capsule, don't forget to go to YouTube, to the voice of Heidie Calero. Give us a like in those economic capsules that are interesting to you. And don't forget, this is a service of Puerto Rico Economic Pulse, and that the economy is all of us. Thank you.